Hangout with the 0 listeners at the current moment.
Mm-hmm.
4:38. Oh no, we got one now. All right, there he is. We got one. All right, so welcome to our. Hold on a second.
Will this be our hater? Hope not.
Oh well, he might be our hater. If our hater's jumping on the moment we get on, he's obviously well. If he comes on, he comes on. I'd like to send a warm welcome out to our hater. Just
Well,
remember,
no, okay, no. Possible hater. We have no
pause.
idea.
Yeah. So anyway, welcome to the Red Pill Nation Hangout. I am. This is the election special.
And
I
then what?
can I'm absolutely I just got to say before we even get into this, I am absolutely gobsmacked at the amount of. Hold on, I didn't have a chance to test the microphone here.
No, you're
I,
fine, man. You're fine.
okay, so I'm hearing a fan in the background. That must be coming from you then. Okay.
Okay. All right.
All right, so no, the fan's gone now. Yeah, so I'm absolutely gobsmacked at how quickly things progressed here. Specifically where I live, but we will get into that. For those of you who don't know, I am in order of sites that a number of people on the sites: BitChute, Rumble, Odyssey, MGTOW TV, Brighteon, and YouTube. I am also at Facebook, Minds, Gab, MeWe, Getter, TLB Talks, and that is Minds, Gab, MeWe. That's about it. Like I say, I have a Patreon. Subscribe at Red Pill Nation Hangout, and as a matter of fact, I will put that down in the low bar here if I can find it. There we go. Banners. There we go. I'll stick that in the lower banner there for you for a bit. Yeah, patreon.com, see Red Pill Nation. Yeah, it's not the Rookie 5, it's the Red Pill Nation. I'll keep that down there for a while. So, and we had an election here in Canada, in case you didn't already know. The wrong party won. That's a pretty obvious statement, but the wrong party won. There's a lot of, just based on, I've had the chance now that the advantage of it going almost 48 hours between when you actually do the election review and when you actually do, because we like the last 2 times we've done this, we've had to do this on the day. And this time I didn't have the chance to do this on the day, which changed the which changed the approach of how I was going to do this. And I am shocked at how much. Well, I'm not really shocked, but I'm like hopeful and somewhat aghast at how quickly things progressed. Again, specifically where I live. Let's make it very clear. The Liberals did not achieve a majority. Unfortunately, once the votes got counted, and we talked about this on a previous show, the Liberals do have enough seats with the NDP to form a coalition. Carney is in fact trying and get a couple of the NDPs to flip seats so that he can have a majority. If the Liberals do get a majority, Canada is really fucked. Here's hoping that the NDP doesn't do that, but there's always that possibility that it could happen. And the issue, and that is probably going to be one of his next moves. Polyev did not lose. Polyev lost the election, but he really did not lose it. They pulled out literally. I did not know this until after the fact. They pulled out every single one of the stops. The Greens, for instance, pulled 100 of their candidates out of ridings, for instance, where where when you consider that most of the Greens would have voted for the Liberals if it was their second choice, pulled out 100 plus candidates out of ridings. They flooded. They I'm almost certain that there was probably some Soros money involved as well. That they flooded Poilievre's home riding with like something like 87 candidates.
Might as well just round it up to 100. Let's call it for what it was. Fine.
Yeah,
Let,
I
us just
think
100. Let's just say 100. 100 possible candidates, including Polyev. I saw a picture of that ballot. Oh my god, it was long.
yeah, I just saw a photo of it too. It was like ridiculously long. Like mine had like maybe 6 or 7 on it. By the way, my home riding is Edmonton Strathcona. The
I was gonna.
NDP here, the
Yeah, I was.
NDP what the NDP won in this riding like walking away, which is
I
no
thought so. Yeah,
surprise.
yeah, yeah. I heard that the NDP did win Edmonton Strathcona, and I just thought to myself, I said to the spouse as well too. I think that's Naroki's writing, but I wasn't too sure. But thank you for confirming.
Well, here was the thing. Up until probably about 3 or 4 elections ago, like I was a traditional NDP voter,
Mm-hmm.
which gets me to the other point. Jagmeet Singh knowingly self-destructed the NDP so that the Liberals would get the vote.
He's been okay. In all fairness, he's been doing a damn good job of sabotaging the NDP to begin with. Anyway, since the previous election,
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
is true.
and I
He
mean,
doesn't
sorry to interrupt here, but I mean, how many times did we talk about him on your podcast? Too many, way too
way
many.
too many.
Yeah. Anyway,
Anyway, so yeah, Singh, and it was very obvious, and it's like in hindsight. So what basically happened in Canada is they pulled a France, right?
yeah.
And Poliev and Carney got just and also of course the fucking boomers.
Fingers up, not elbows up. Double flipping the bird. Put your fingers up. Oh, put up your. Oh, fuck.
The fucking motherfucking cocksucking ass kissing fucking brown nosing fucking boomers.
How do you really feel? Oh, fuck. Dude, I'm
I
not.
saw I saw a meme here today as I was just before I was going on where this one guy said it was this soldier dropping a hand grenade down
Oh,
down
yeah,
below,
yeah, yeah.
and it was like
Yep.
it was his boomers throwing one massive fuck you to the generation behind them. It was like, do
If
they
they,
under, do they understand what they've gone and done? I mean, are they really that fucking stupid? Obviously, keep in mind here, right? I mean, they obviously are that fucking stupid. Keep in mind that they took like from the '60s when they were like the full flower. Like, I mean, they have fucked things up so badly now that I mean, you start looking back at the '60s now, and it was like this cultural fucking revolution that took place in North America in the '60s, and to a lesser extent in Western Europe and whatever. And now you're like looking at it, and you're like, going, "Oh my fucking god! How do we ever let these people even get power?" Like they literally spent away the excess.
yes and no. I look at it rather differently, if I may say. And I apologize, this may be. Okay, folks, before we go any further here, and to our one listener that's still with us, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Um, I mean, what was it? You have to look in that Shaw. So, say around 2013, there was a whole hate on for the boomers because, well, they're the ones that got rich. They're the ones that have. No, they just happened to be born when social and especially economic policy changes were coming through. I was born just before or just after Nixon took the U.S. off the gold standard because they didn't have the cash. They were too far in debt that the amount of gold that, be realistic here, that is not in Fort Knox anymore. They didn't have the gold reserves to actually back their dollar. And relatively speaking, recently enough, say within about the last 7 to 8 years, I think we were still working with ADT at the time. If I was, let's just say 2019. Jim Rickards has said, I'm going to have followed him to some degree, not much, but to some degree. But what he said was that we have the gold reserves to back the dollar, but basically what FDR did to take the price of an ounce of gold from $20 US up to 35 or 40 or whatever it was, he said all you have to do is just basically inflate the value of an ounce of gold, and at some point you will be able to cover your debt or have it back, basically have your debt backed by gold. So how does that tie into what I'm seeing here? Is that the boomers were basically the generation that was able to capitalize on inflation if they did things right, and enough of them did. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again with the boomers and any other idiot in Canada that's going to basically say, "Well, I'm going to invest in a home because that's going to be, my best asset." Fucking no, it's not. I'm sorry, folks. Oh, and once again, let's just throw this out there, Rocky. What kind of standard do we have?
No standard.
Exactly. So with all of the idiot Canadians that are out there, who are probably not going to do this podcast, and that's perfectly fine. I don't care. But where Canadians put their money into is to buying a house, to have a home. And I'm sorry, when you pay, when you pay, when you pay, at least 3 times in interest to what the asset that you're buying, you don't have an asset. You have a liability on your goddamn fucking neck. And you're going to be hoping that at some point you can sell it and where it'll be profitable. Maybe it will be profitable, but as long as you don't think about what you paid in interest, it's okay. And that to me is just absolute fucking insanity. And to me, that was the mitigating factors. That was one of them, I do believe. And it's the boomers that basically just ended up just being brain dead, trained, that just happen to be walking on 2 legs, that are that have the elbows up and they're doing the retard clap. I don't know how else to say it. Am I wrong, my friend?
No, you're not.
So, and I'm pretty sure within this podcast we're going to get to the proposed legislative changes to Alberta to look at separation.
Oh, yeah, we are. We're going to cover that after basically what happened in the election
Okay.
first.
Yeah, yeah. So, and again, there was that brain dead idiot in Brantford, 2 fingers up in the, I don't even know what color of, in that red based cardigan that he was wearing or sweater or something like that. Anyway, the guy that got basically outlined, he became a meme. And the brewery that he was working with, that he had worked for up until about 3 years ago, James, I can't remember his fucking name. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The place that he used to work at disavowed. Disavowed. Like, yeah, he used to work here, but what he said does not reflect on how we feel here. I was like, wow, good lord. Anyway, 400, Jesus, man, Joseph, 400. My apologies, folks. I'm just astounded by that number. 438 episodes. Good lord. Okay. In terms of context, if it hasn't already been mentioned before, we might as well just put it out there. Naroki has said that he lives up in Edmonton, Strathcona, which voted NDP. I live in, I'll be transparent for now, I live in Calgary Centre. and my MP won by not even 1.5% of the vote. So he got 51.3, which was what I believe I saw. So it's a squeaker, but whoever gets over that finish line gets over the finish line, and be that, and here we are. Um, yeah, back to you, my friend. I know we're going to be trading here back and forth over the course of.
Well, yeah, we're gonna try to make this sound like it's a bit of a circle jerk here, but this is basically it's like okay, so several things happened here. The NDP and the Greens both basically chose to fall on their swords so that Carney would have a chance. The motherfucking boomers bought into the anti-Trump rhetoric.
Oh God, fuck! Don't. Well, okay, okay. Are we going to go there now? Shall we go
No,
there?
no, 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 no. Let's not go there right now. There's a number of other reasons. The Atlantic provinces decided they would rather keep sucking on the tits. And the
Sure.
Laurentians went overwhelmingly for the fucking liberals. And it's like, and again, it wasn't decided by the time they got to Ontario, by the time they finished Ontario, but it's like, it was pretty much, they almost pretty much had it in the bag at that point. They were going to get a thing again, right? They got a disturbingly high number of seats in Vancouver again. And I think that was part of their strategy because they knew that the Greens and the NDP had a significant amount of support on the West Coast,
Mm-hmm.
and that was where they needed to. That's where they needed to grab some seats, and that's where they grabbed some additional seats. I can't believe how many. Again, Trump figured this out a little bit too fucking late. Sorry, I have to be a little bit harsher on Trump for any
Okay.
American listeners.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have
Go
to
ahead.
be a little bit harsh. Trump should have backed right the fuck off on that 51st state rhetoric.
I'm going to disagree with you, but I will wait until you've said what you've had to say, and then I
Well,
will. Yeah, go
it
ahead.
it, it played a major part in why the boomers voted for the liberals. When they broke down the graphics,
Yeah.
the number one issue with the boomers was the fact that was to make sure that Trump, quote unquote, wasn't going to turn Canada. And of course, like Carney in his victory speech immediately started up with the Trump anti Trump rhetoric. Trump. I mean, I hate to fucking say this, but yeah, it wasn't the factor,
But it
but
was
it
a
was
factor.
it was a factor. It
Yeah.
wasn't one thing that did it. Also, Polyev did botch a couple of things. I can't specifically when he did this one interview with one guy. He did botch out a couple of things, which also played a factor in it. It wasn't it wasn't, but it wasn't one thing that did it for Carney.
It,
Here's
I was
uh,
going to say, on both sides, to really it came down to death by about 100 cuts, not 1,000, but death by 100 cuts.
okay. Here's a couple of things that did work in Poilievre's favor, though.
Mm-hmm.
One, the he did botch the debate. Carney botched the debate. That is probably the reason why, given how close the Liberals came to have forming a majority government, that's probably the reason why it's a minority and not a majority. Um, that definitely played a part in it. The PPC, and I've been voting PPC since the PPC got formed. I decided not to this time. It was just simply too important to not divide the vote. And as much as I agree with a lot of what Bernier had to say, I might go PPC next time, but I mean, this time there was really legitimately no way that I could vote for the PPC. Like it was just too important. Well, to give you an idea of how important it was for me to vote, I was dealing with food poisoning on Monday. I could barely walk from my bedroom to my living room. And I had a little accident in my pants, which involved me having to change my underwear and put stinky underwear into a bag twice.
Dude, okay. Okay, you can keep those kind of conversations between you and I. You don't need to open up or air out your dirty laundry like that. But if you want to,
Oh no, I had to. I just to give it a point. One of those events happened while I was on my way to vote. So I had to anyway. I'm not going to go into all the details. By the time I did get down, and I did have enough energy to go back to go to the polling station and vote, and then come back and then immediately pass out. And I passed out probably for about 2 or 3 hours afterwards. But it was that important for me to go vote. Um, yeah, I was listening to a couple of the shows that were going on because I chose to listen to Viva Fry. The last thing that came there was a couple of mixed opinions. One of them is like clearly saying the quiet part out loud, and I have a hard time disagreeing with them. Canada is probably fucked, but
no. Well, yes and no.
yeah, Canada is probably fucked. Well, first of all, and this is something that Peterson pointed out, and I posted it up at my Facebook page. Carney is just a more organized, slightly diplomatic, more administrative version of Justin Trudeau. He is an absolute diehard globalist. He will align himself a lot closer with China if push comes to shove and Canada really starts to fall apart. And I got to point out that is a very legit possibility considering what is going on. Uh, I suspect that he might actually try to bring Chinese troops. He's almost a,
That ain't gonna fucking happen. If
no,
you
I know it's not going to happen, but I mean, yeah, you know what? I mean, he might actually fuck things up enough that the Americans might have to intervene just in case.
well, that's what I was gonna say though. Is that if you think Trump is gonna put up with that shit, well, I don't see it happening. I really don't. I would dare Carney to do that, but of the fuckery that's going on right now in the world, could it happen? Yes. Do I think it will happen? I don't see it. I really honestly don't.
Well, okay, here's the thing, and we will get into the after. We're just doing the immediate stuff here. Uh Carney is going he might be a little bit sneakier about it. He might be a little bit more methodical about it. You're going to see he is going to try at some point to initiate Bill C-63, which is the Online Harms Act again. He might even be stupid enough to do that right straight out the gate. Um, Pray he's that fucking stupid. Also, you know what? He's also going to have to, and because this is what happened over in Europe with the farmers in Germany and the Netherlands and France and so on and so forth. The reason why Trudeau chose to back off on that strategy, and trust me, they did try to put some apparatus in place in Western Canada to do the same thing to Western Canada that they had been doing to the farmers in Germany and the Netherlands and so forth. There's enough of an independent media out there that knows what Trudeau was trying to do, and there was enough exchange of information between Europe and Canada that they figured out pretty quickly what he was trying to do, and they made sure that he wasn't going to be able to pull that off, right? Also, Trudeau was smart enough to understand that, I mean, he's already pissed off the energy sector in Canada. If he pisses off the farmers, that's it. Alberta is definitely gone as it currently stands right now. And we will get into the Alberta separation part on this at some point. And it is not for anybody from Canada who's listening to this or anybody from the USA, this is not going to be Quebec 2.0. Like, I'm absolutely shocked at how quickly it's gone from zero to, yeah, let's fucking do this. Like, really fast. Like, super, super, super fast. And so, yeah, it's Carney might be a little bit more sophisticated about doing it. Keep in mind, I wasn't sold on Polyev, but Polyev said enough of the things that I liked, and Bernier was at least smart enough not to try and split the vote this time, although he was very critical of Polyev. Polyev is gonna stick around. That much is very, very clear. Carney, unless the NDP backs him to the hill, which would be the absolute death of the NDP if they did that. That would be the end of the NDP. If the NDP decides to mindlessly back the Liberal Party again for 4 years, like, they're done. Like, as a party, the I'm going to guess that the Liberals are going to have to be a little bit more kowtowing to the Bloc as well. The only problem is, though, is that if the Bloc starts getting too, well, French and starts making a whole bunch of demands of the federal government that require Alberta's money to make happen, that's not gonna go over very well again, right? And also, Carney is gonna have to start selling Alberta oil to China and some other places at a competitive rate, and not like, I mean, one of the things, and this is something that I only found out about recently, the Canadian government is part of the reason why the Canadian government has been able to keep the revenues flowing is because they've been undercutting the competition. So yeah, and they've been able to sell their oil at a relatively cheap price, and they're keeping Alberta on the lifeline just enough to keep themselves going. In short, the whole apple cart is teetering. They're on a very, very narrow bridge. And one misstep from Carney and the whole thing just falls apart, and it's probably going to fall apart anyway, simply because, well, he's taking his advice from the wrong fucking people. He might be a little bit more methodical and organized, and he won't stick his mouth, and he won't be a cliche fucking puppet like Trudeau was, but he's definitely not gonna be Carney will not be able to get away with the arrogant. Oh, by the way, I'm also going to point out something else too. It was Carney's idea to freeze the bank accounts of the truckers. I believe that it was his idea to do that. So, yeah, you're like looking at a very Carney won, the Liberals won, but they won barely. They're not a majority, and that was the thing, right? Thank God. I mean, thank God for the debate, man. I hate to say it because I'm an atheist, but thank God for the fucking debate. Thank God for Carney's gaffes. Also, I don't think, again, this is another thing. Carney does not have Trudeau's charisma or his moxie. so he won't be able to go a step out in front of a TV telephone, a TV camera or whatever, and smile and make all of these nice, pretty promises and be able to kind of sell it the same way that Justin was. Even towards the end, like Justin was clearly out of favor. This is going to be, yeah, this is going to be a very difficult Like almost, I'm saying this gladly. It's going to be a very, very ugly situation for Carney, because Carney, the globalists right now are rubbing their hands together or giving a collective sigh of relief because they won, but they didn't win. And the NDP is going to like literally tear itself apart, right? That the NDP is going to have to figure out whether they want to survive or whether they just want to kowtow in the short term. Now, knowing what the leftists are like, they're just going to go with the immediate, and it's going to be the end of the NDP, because the NDP is going to, like, I would be curious to see what it's going to be like at the next NDP national convention. I wouldn't be surprised, because the last NDP convention in Hamilton, they literally had to call security in to break people up. And that was before this election. I don't know what's going to happen. And the Greens as well. The Greens are also going to have, because, like, I mean, there is a faction of people on the left that if the NDP and the Greens don't reform, if the NDP and the NDP and the Greens don't decide that they're not going to be their own separate parties and they're going to kowtow to globalists, there's probably about 20 to 40%, 20 to 30% of that party that are probably, they're going to be like me. They're going to just shift over to the conservatives. Not because they want to be with the conservatives, because the party has really given them no other choice. And it's like, yeah, not going to go into the repercussions of everything now. There's a lot of stuff there's a lot of things that are moving, and then we're going to get into the after. But Rierson, yeah, you're up.
I don't actually feel nearly as I've never liked using the word, but I'll say it. I don't feel nearly as triggered then as I was now. I mean, my spouse is more triggered still about what's happened that I haven't. So, I mean, at the end of the day, there's only so much that I can do, which is to cast my ballot. Now, I will say that I felt like a fucking used dirty whore going going in and to cast my vote. And I will say this much, that Buckminster Fuller has said that you can't fix the current problem with current solutions or current thinking. And to be honest, my gut was telling me don't vote. And I should have listened. Because at the end of the day, the way that I've always seen it, well, the way that I've seen it recently enough is that if you vote, especially if you're in Alberta or Saskatchewan and you're conservative, and the ruling class is the Laurentian elites, they're not going to listen. Just like fucking with Disney. Okay? Like, I'll bring that topic back in again. Is that with Revenge of the Sith being re-released, they brought in $42 fucking million, which is a clear indication to the Star Wars fans, to Disney, as to what they want. And are they going to change that shit? Nope. They're just going to keep doing what they're doing. So I don't see how this is any different, really, than what we had 2 days ago. And I want someone to tell me that my comparison isn't wrong, because if you have anything to say about that, I'd be open to listen to it. I really would. And that's fine. That's fine.
Okay, so are you done?
Well, then I was going to say, with the wife foaming, frothing at the mouth. Now, she's a permanent resident here in Canada, and that's perfectly fine. We've been married for well over 20 years. Oh, hello. Something came up on your end on your end, but uh, she's not eligible to vote because she is still going to retain her citizenship overseas, Japanese. But she's been screaming at the TV. She made the mistake of watching something on some clip on CBC, and I tried to tell her, that just don't listen to these idiots because they're bought and paid for. And here's something else that should be made much more aware to Canadians
Or
overall.
maybe your wife is actually listening in the background to what we've been talking about for the last few years.
Well, she hates the whole idea of what Trump's been doing, but she hates, well, severely dislikes even more of what Ottawa's been doing. And if she could have voted, I know she would have. And it really just comes down to, that's what I wanted to say as well too. The fallout with all of this is that the CBC really has shown, not that they didn't before because they were doing a damn good job of it, but if you couldn't see how biased the CBC is for the Liberals, again, bought and paid for, called it out way back in 2018 that they have officially been bought and paid for, not that they weren't already, to eat the shit out of Trudeau, eat the corn out of Trudeau's shit, as JD and I have agreed upon. And I wasn't aware that that was a metaphor. That's basically what it's been. Again, folks, there are absolutely no standards here. But the horrendous biased opinions of the Canadian mainstream media has been put on full display if you have the balls, the testicular or testicular fortitude to actually question what the hell's going on. And I'm kind of the black sheep of most of the people that I know because, well, they're zagging and I'm zagging. So there should be plenty of eye-opening moments. And for the boomers, especially that wanted someone that's going to be able to go up against Trump. I'm sorry. But again, we've talked about this before. And with Mark Carney having been the Bank of, basically the equivalent of the Bank of England governor, as he was the Bank of Canada governor, he doesn't know his head from his ass. All he knows how to do is basically to set the printing presses on an infinite loop and to maximize printing as much useless bills as possible. And that's what really gets me is that the people that voted for Carney, well,
Hello?
yeah, no, I'm trying to formulate this here. My apologies for taking a little bit of time, a little bit of extra time here. Yes and no that Trump needed to interfere with Canadian politics. But when we get to that point, I'm going to say a few things that will probably rattle enough people's cages. And it won't necessarily be very popular, but I don't think that what I'm going to say is going to be wrong. But Trump had to interfere, but I will get to that soon enough. But as I said, it's the the Canadian voters that were voting emotionally rather than logically, which Kind of sense we're talking about women voting, but yeah, I went there. Guess what? Don't care. But outside of that one provincial jurisdiction in Saskatchewan, which was half the freaking province, but that was just how sparsely populated the representation for one MP seat is, which really, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, that's the size of individually of most American states with that northern Saskatchewan riding, which went liberal. And that's fine. That's just how they are. Whatever. So I'm honestly at this point now, I'm past the point of being upset. I'm just going, okay, well, life goes on. Guess what? You gotta, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and this and that, the other thing, and you have to pick up and go forward. So that's what I'm doing. I'm disappointed and I'm not with the results. Like I said, it's a very mixed bag with how I'm feeling with everything that's happened here. So, eh, there's only so much you can do, which really isn't very much. So, I don't have much more to say on this one. You're going to say something. I just heard you just breathe in. So, what do you got?
Oh, I'm currently on. Well, you've been talking. I have been listening. I've been trying to find that meme, the one where the boomers drop the.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. That was yours. I might be able to find it faster.
I found the one that you posted up about the Knights.
That one is aesthetically incredibly pleasing. Like it really is. Sorry, I just saw your post here of B is for Bolter. That's cute. That really is. Where did you?
Anyway, I found a couple of them. I'm gonna post them up here. Just I can't find it at the moment. So if you can find it and send it to me on Skype.
Yeah, because I did like it. So maybe I think I liked it. So if you go into your notifications, you should see it there. But
What notification would note on Skype, on Facebook, on where?
Facebook on Crackbook, because I don't
Okay.
see it.
Anyway, I found a couple of interesting ones here. I'm going to post them up here in just a second, as soon as I can. I can find. But yeah, the last thing I want to talk about here is the obviously bought and paid for fucking mainstream media. Uh, they were part of the problem. Especially fucking CBC, the way CBC behaved in that last, the way they were, especially the way they were acting like immature brats, because True North and the Rebel got in, and they were smart enough to not get into the to not get into to not buy. They were smart enough to get to the front of the line during the debates, especially. They did such an effective job during the French language debate that they actually they canceled, the Canadian government canceled the second press scrum afterwards, because they knew that Carney was going to look really, really, really bad.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
but
Again,
again, right? Again, that.
again
But I
for
mean, they were.
security reasons that weren't specified. Shocker.
Yeah. So I mean, the whole thing with, okay, I didn't post it up on my. Yeah, I didn't post it up at my. I didn't post that. Oh well, we'll find it at some point. I'm gonna have to, but I mean, yeah. They even tried to fool people into thinking that the Liberals were going to actually, again, right, because there's people out there that are stupid enough to say they were going to vote for the winner. You know, like that's just a stupid way to vote. This sports is like politics is not fucking sports. And that has to be emphasized for a few people out there who seem to be really, really stupid about this sort of thing. But yeah, politics is not sports. And to assume that it is sports is, like that's just wow. So the whole thing with the media was just absolutely disgusting. Again, right? Thank God for that, and that's part of it. Again, here's the catch-22 that Carney is in, though. They are not going to be able to pull the same tricks the next time around. Again, just like what happened with Trump in 2020. Yeah, the Democrats tried that same playbook in 2024, and they were onto it, and they weren't able to pull the same degree of shenanigans in 2024 the way they did in 2020. And that's the same thing that's going to happen here, which again goes back to, like the ND. Does the NDP want to survive as a party, or does the NDP just want to continue to be, as you will take a look at the cover photo of my current of the current show, or do they just want to be brainwashed sheeple and self-important NPCs?
Wow.
Like that is,
Yeah, that's about right. I love
yeah.
Kearney. Oh God. Okay.
So I mean, the whole thing is that we're not they're not going to be able to. Yeah, they won, but they didn't win, and um, you know when we get into the after, then we will get into some of the other stuff that occurred, because the after is very, very interesting. But I'm going to have Rearson just take us out on what his impression. Although he doesn't have a TV, well his wife does, but he doesn't. He doesn't watch the TV of the reactions. Oh yeah, we can talk about some of the reactions. Again, keep in mind we live in Alberta, so there's a bit of a slant to the people that we've been talking to. But yeah, Rearson on the media.
Well, as I said, the CBC's already been bought and paid for a long time ago, and the rest of the mainstream media has been officially bought and paid for, again, to the tune of about $600 million over the course of 5 years, which is also renewed back in 2023, I believe. So, not terribly surprising. I really don't listen to. No, I don't watch. I don't watch the TV. What the wife watched was clips from the CBC on YouTube, and like I said, she was losing her shit over it. And I just, okay, well, first off, stop watching this crap. And then she switched over to City Pulse or CP24 or whatever, and it was the same thing. It just wasn't as blatant. It wasn't as obvious. And again, I would love for someone to, well, a certain someone that we used to both know. I know that he's probably, I don't know. I have no idea if he's happier than a pig in shit, if he's just happy just being in.
Oh damn, you took the words right out of my mouth.
What, being happy as a pig in shit?
Yeah.
I have no idea. And I'm I feel that I'm a better person just for having removed him from my life. I don't like saying it that way, but that's really what it was. And anyone's going to be complaining about Trump with the media and he controls them. It's like, really? Really? Just like with the left leaning media south of the border as is the left leaning media north of the border, they're a lot happy. Like you said, they're a lot happier to be picking out the shit, picking out the corn from Trudeau or now Carney's shit and steaming it and doing whatever they're going to do with it. and then eat it, and they're going to be happy with it. I've got a nasty fucking prediction with what's going to happen soon enough, and we'll see.
Yeah, well, we'll get into it when we get into the after. The other part
Yeah.
is that, I mean, I keep in mind, I was working out in camp. People in the energy industry are obviously not going to be liberal supporters. There might, I will point.
Unless, sorry to say this, unless they're new to Canada and don't know what the fuck's going on, and somehow they have the ability to actually vote.
I will point out though there was some like 800 or 900 people in the camp that I worked at,
Mm-hmm.
and every once in a while I would walk into the cab, walk into the dining area in either one of the kitchens, and the TV would be turned to CNN or CBC. It didn't happen very often, but it did happen. So there are believers
Okay. You were
out
always
there.
okay. Yes, I'll fully acknowledge that, but I will say that you're always going to have that somewhere.
Yeah. Probably, my guess is probably office staff. That would be my guess. Because
Uh,
there was one person, I know this because it would be like I would go into the place that I was working at before I put in my resignation there.
mm,
I would walk in at a certain time, and with consistency, it was always turned to CNN, like always.
the most trusted name in news. No, it's not. You don't be rude. Don't be
So
rude. Don't be rude. You are fake news. I don't know how close I sounded, but I'm sure I wasn't too far off. But
yeah,
anyway,
yeah. There's obviously he obviously does have a few supporters up here, not very many. But I mean the couple people that I did, there was one guy I was sitting beside, and there was an election ad that came on for Carney. We were watching a playoff game, or what was it watching? No,
oh,
the playoffs hadn't started yet.
Mr. Net Zero
Yeah, no, we were watching. I think it was the second to last game of the season. We were both sitting there
in the City of
eating. Wow.
Champions.
Yeah, we were both sitting there, and an ad came on for Carney, and I looked at Kim and I said, "Yeah, it was Carney's idea to block the accounts of the truckers, right?" And it's like he looked at me, and he didn't even look at me. He just kind of like turned his eyes, looked over at me, and he just went back to eating and says, "Well, no, if Carney wins, there's going to be a referendum."
Yep.
And it's true, there is going to be a referendum. I try not to get. I definitely because of the number of immigrants they got working again, right? Oh yes, no,
What's
we'll
that?
get into corporate welfare
Oh
on
God.
hiring of immigrants. Yeah, that's something else that's also something that's on the back burner that a lot of people don't know about. That's also going to probably come. That was also something that was probably going to come to an end under Polyev at some point, just not right away.
Yeah,
Um,
as it should, but well,
but again, right, I don't get into politics and religion when I'm at work, and especially in what basically amounts to a small town in the middle of nowhere. Especially given, and I was right, especially given how my boss was, the new manager was treating their staff,
mhm.
which was like shitty as hell. But hold on a sec, what the hell happened here?
I can still hear you.
No, something. Hold on, I'm going to have to just hold on a second here. Talk for a
Okay.
little bit. I have to do a restart. Hold on.
Okay. I I don't know what to say anymore at this point. It to me what this has shown. Well, I'll say it now. Then Neuroki can get back to it as well too. My apologies here, folks. I wasn't quite expecting this.
No, I'm back. Something just happened, and I had to do a restart.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
gonna be. There is definitely gonna be a referendum.
Well, yeah.
And
Okay. Now we will get to that here shortly, folks. In light of what's happened in with the result in Ottawa and how it's going to reflect in Alberta. And if one doesn't happen first, the other will. But we'll get to that here soon enough. So, all right, go ahead, my friend.
Okay, so yeah. Daniel's again. Now that we've done the before, let's get into the after.
Yep.
Daniel Smith knew what the reading on the T. Obviously, what
yeah.
happened that obviously when Carney came in and talked to Daniel Smith earlier this year, like back I think it was in March or whatever, and Daniel Smith laid out what Alberta was going to do. Obviously, what Carney said to her was unconvincing. You
Well,
know,
okay. It's a little difficult to be convincing when you say one thing in English and you say another thing in French.
well, that's not just that. I mean, it's like, the fact of the matter is that like within not even 24 hours out of the gate of Carney winning, Daniel Smith changes the rules around having a referendum for separation. That meant that hold on, will you let me finish?
Yeah.
All right. That meant that Daniel Smith knew that Carney was full of shit, and that she knew that she was going to have to get the apparatus of separation moving the moment, and she knew it from a political stance, that she knew had to get the apparatus of separation moving the moment that the moment that Carney won. She had very little choice in that regard. So I mean, it was like, yeah, and it's like she had to send a very, very strong message to Carney. It's like, yeah, you know what? Like, you're not going to be able to pull the say. Like, I mean, like for instance, if Carney tries to go with net zero and start fucking with the farmers in Western Canada, like it's game over. Please be that stupid.
It says quite a lot when we're both saying the same thing, pretty much right off the bat. I want him to be that fucking stupid. I really do.
If he tries to I mean, I can almost certainly guarantee that Daniel Smith will have to, if he tries to push a C-63 through. Daniel Smith will likely have no other. There's going to have to obviously be some communication with her on this, but there's going to obviously be a situation where she's going to have to invoke notwithstanding.
Well, she's already been saying that for quite a while now. You know, the notwithstanding clause because of emission caps, or what the hell was it? You know, to create more power generators for electricity. Ottawa was saying, no, you can't do that. And she basically said, fuck off. Go get stuffed. We're going to do it anyway. And, you know, this is provincial jurisdiction within the Constitution. You're overstepping the bounds. And, you know, she was basically reversing Trudeau's father's salute, and I use that term very loosely, back at Ottawa to basically say, piss off. I mean, I don't remember any provincial leader that has been quite, I don't want to say happy, but has felt the need to invoke the notwithstanding clause that this is a provincial matter. You get your, you know, I would say go stick your nose up Ontario's ass, but you know, keep your nose out of Alberta. That's a beautiful fucking picture. That really is. Yeah, the reckoning is approaching. It's coming, and it's coming pretty quickly. Anyway, I mean, there's been enough. Oh, here's something else in terms of afterwards as well too. To go with that picture that I saw, which you've put up here, which is that Ontario has been, and a lot of people in Ontario for that matter, are pretty ignorant about Western separation and or Western alienation, and we can get into that afterwards because I used to be one of those people, and my mother is one of those people, and it's a mess. It is an absolute freaking mess. Anyway, do we want to go down there, or shall we just continue with Danielle? Let's continue with Danielle.
No, we have to. Well, I mean, again, right? It's self-explanatory. Danielle was obviously not
She was smart.
swayed.
She was smart.
She was not. She wasn't dumb enough to. She wasn't dumb enough to buy Mark Carney's bullshit.
Yep.
She wasn't. She was definitely not going to be. She was definitely not going to. She was definitely also not going, and she also knows, but she also knows she could see the way things are going.
She did buy.
From
She didn't buy the bill of goods sale.
She didn't buy the bill of good sale, and she also knew that, I mean, if the Liberals won, that she was going to have to at least start the process of and do it right away to let Carney know absolutely and with absolute clear and unspecified uncertainty that that if he tried to do stuff like, oh, say C63, or or if he tried to pull that stuff with I can't. Oh well, no. You know what? I can't. I can't find that. I can't find that
Okay,
meme. So I'm gonna have to.
What was it?
The one with the soldier dropping the hand grenade.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Start looking for it. Hold
Okay,
on.
okay. So
yeah, and what's gonna happen here is that they have to start this right away, because what they're going to do the moment they reconvene in the House is that Carney is going to pick up right where Trudeau left off. He's going to be a little bit sneakier about it. He's going to try to pull like your typical Liberal con game, where they will bury this stuff in other bills to make it look and they will make the bills sound better on paper than what they actually are. But what he's effectively doing is what they're going to effectively try to do is they're going to try to pass this stuff. There's going to be watered down versions of it. And Daniel Smith had to make a very, very clear message to Mark Carney that if he fucking tries that, it's not like Alberta is going to leave. Currently, I'm going to guess like the percentage of people in Alberta that want to separate was sitting at about 35%, give or take. And of course, if you listen to the mainstream media, they're like, oh no, it's lower. And it's like, whenever I look at the people, it's always some fucking academic or some fucking establishment fucking press person, or somebody who makes their living in academia, or somebody who lives in the city. It's like, I will say I have already lost one friend over this.
Oh well.
I just said I posted up on my Facebook timeline. I want to congratulate all the idiots out east who decided to vote to keep. Congratulations, assholes! You just put you just clicked the clock on Alberta separation. And there's this one girl I went to high school with. Started to use the word retard. It was triggering to this one guy, and it was like. And I knew I don't get into politics with him.
Yep.
Right. But I said, dude, you fucking when this thing really starts to get going, and Alberta separation becomes a real issue, just remember, man, you fucking voted for this.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah, yeah. And the thing too, though, is that, and no one's really talking about this. It was what, 2, maybe 3 weeks ago that Premier Smith was saying that if it isn't a conservative government that gets in place, there will be a national unity issue. And that is exactly what we're running into now.
Yeah, that's what really shocked me was how fast it happened. Like, it was not even midnight. It wasn't even midnight, and the polls had just closed, and there was already on Facebook, and specifically on Alberta sites specifically, there was already open talk about separation. Like, not even like Carney probably hadn't even gone to bed yet, and he's already having to deal with.
You mean Carney dancing away with the devil horns over his head?
Yeah, well, Carney probably hadn't even gotten to bed yet, or maybe he had gotten to bed. Carney hadn't even gotten up in the following morning, and there's already serious talk in Alberta about separation. Like, it happened that fast. And if it happens that fast, then it's fucking serious. I gotta point out something too, because this is what I'm surprised at how few viewers I'm getting on this particular episode. For the people who are listening outside of Alberta and in Quebec, that are specifically, this is not, or in Canada that are listening to this, Alberta is not Quebec.
Tabernacle's fucking right, we're not,
It's not gonna be this slow bending like it was in Quebec. This is gonna be a hard fucking break, right?
Well, unlike the fucking Tabernaclers, I mean the Quebecers, who have been sitting on their ass, and they keep fucking threatening to leave, and every time that they do, all of a sudden, that Ottawa is going to give us more shit to keep us kind of happy. Alberta doesn't put up with that shit. We don't.
Well, here's the thing, right? They're, again, I going back to that. They want to keep Alberta prosperous enough that it can keep the rest of the country going, or most of the rest, except for BC, Saskatchewan, to a limited extent, Ontario. They want to keep the money flowing specifically into. They want Alberta wealthy enough just to keep the money to keep paying Quebec off.
Yeah. Okay.
But at the same time, they also, though, don't want Alberta being too super prosperous, because look at what happened when Klein was running the show in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Again, Alberta, if Quebec, again, though, if you're going to treat somebody like you're their piggy bank, then it's like, at some point, you have to go back to them. And it's like somebody, you just keep borrowing money from them and not giving them anything back. At some point, they're just going to go, fuck, no, we're done, right?
It sounds like you're talking about modern dating right now with women to men. Well, he better buy me food. He better be this. He better, oh God. Well, okay. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. The way that I've been looking at this whole thing is that with Ottawa, you've got Ottawa basically being the father figure, and you've got Ontario and Quebec being the older brother, the oldest brother, and the oldest sister, just because the fucking Quebec government fucking bitches and complains like a fucking bitch. Let's be honest. They're incredibly feminine. And those two are more than happy to be bitching and complaining and to be the bloodsuckers of Alberta, Saskatchewan, and BC. Those are the 3 contributing provinces that put money into the coffers for the lazy, I don't want to quite say it this way, but I'll say it, the lazy and useless provinces that can't get off their fucking ass to actually do something.
Well, here's the thing. I'll let you finish, and I'll say something about Quebec.
Okay. Well, you might as well say it now.
Well, Quebec, apparently there is an LNG deposit
Mm.
And it's in a prime location too. Apparently, it's between Quebec and Montreal,
I, I,
Quebec
I
City and Montreal.
yeah, I mentioned this before on one of our last podcasts. Yeah, if that's where you remember hearing it from, perfectly fine. Because I heard it from a former with a former coworker. I'm going to go see him in a couple of days, and apparently, according to my former coworker, is that Quebec City and Ottawa, the respective capitals of Quebec and Canada, they've been doing their absolute best to keep that information suppressed, and anyone that wants to drill into it has been basically blocked from doing so.
By the provincial government, for the most part, and by the federal government. Yeah,
Yep.
there's enough LNG there, just the liquid natural gas, and there's all there. Apparently, there's a couple
Pockets.
other pockets in Quebec that turn Quebec into a have province.
Yeah, and they
And
don't, and they
and
don't want to. They don't want to fucking do it because that means that they actually have to contribute to everybody else, and they're hell bent on basically being as poor as possible and to suck the blood out of, I'll say it for what it is, Alberta first and foremost, because it isn't the Quebec people, because I've got a very strong feeling that enough of them don't like what's going on because they have about a 75% approval, public approval, according to polls, to bring pipelines into the province. But apparently Alberta's is sorry, not Alberta, Quebec. Apparently Quebec is ruled by a 5% ultra nationalist clique that hates Alberta for being what it is. They're happy to take our money. They're happy to take our funding, but they sure shit won't fucking pull their own weight.
well, I mean, Germany and Japan have been like they both
Yeah.
came hat in hand and offered to pay
A premium. Yep.
a premium to
Yep.
get this money. And also, yeah, here's the other part on this that I didn't get into is the fact that again they've been underselling Canadian oil again. And for the most part, to keep Alberta, basically try to keep Alberta kind of tethered in. Yeah, Quebec is
Quebec's a
again
mess. Quebec
okay.
is a fucking mess.
Yeah, well, here's the other part on this. If the BQ leader if Quebec continues to try and treat Alberta like it's their piggy bank, which is exactly what they've been doing now for the past half century.
Yep.
Well, actually, now we're talking 60 years. I think they've reached again. Because of what happened under Trudeau, I think they've reached the end of the line. So
Yep.
the BQ, and I mean, I would like to think that maybe there's some people inside the BQ who realize that the jig's up. Because I mean, ironically enough, what could end up happening here is that the BQ could make some demands on, and they're in a position to do it now too, on the Liberals, and the Liberals would have to concede. And who would be paying for it? Why, we would, of course. And it's like,
Shocker!
and
Absolute fucking shocker!
and it's like, and Alberta's like going, no, like, no, you're cut off, right? Like you're cut off. Also, you're also looking at the fact that Saskatchewan, in particular, although Saskatchewan isn't as close to separation as, say, Alberta is.
Not yet.
Once Alberta and BC, I got to point out something because people seem to think that BC is a fucking blue state or a red province. It's not. The interior, the last provincial election, and a lot of people don't know this, last provincial election, the NDP barely won. Like, just barely. And
I think with BC, if we could somehow filter out foreign interference, namely China, I could see BC basically being a blue. And Canadian politics, a blue state, American politics, a red state.
it would be if it was running if BC had been a U.S. state, it would have been a swing state.
Yeah, fair
Yeah,
enough.
a lot of people don't realize that about BC because well, BC is just nothing but a liberal shithole. It's like no, no, no. Go into the interior again. We know this
Yep. Y-
because I know this because I'm from BC originally, right?
Yeah, I was going to say in terms of context, we're talking about when you say we know this, that is you and I, correct?
Yeah, we know this.
Yeah.
Um, again, right. Also, the word from the media down south that I've been hearing so far, Crowder had some very because Crowder's
Oh,
from
yep.
Montreal originally.
Uh,
Crowder made a
no,
very
not
Crowder made
quite.
a
Not quite. I think Crowder was born in the States and he moved up to
Montreal.
Montreal. So he will say that in terms of the Canadian side of his family or his upbringing, yes, he's been to Montreal and he has said that in Quebec, Quebec is very socialist.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, no, Crowder made a very strong statement. Basically, what he did is he looked at Alberta and says, like, I mean,
Oh yeah.
they're using your money. They don't respect you. They don't
Yep.
hold your values.
Hmm.
Um,
Why are you sticking around?
why are you sticking around?
Yeah.
Right? It's like, and it's like, yeah, you'd have even like, I mean, I could first of all, Trump, given Alberta's wealth and the fact that most of the oil that's part of the reason why Trump kind of cut some slack on that's why Daniel Smith also went down and talked to Trump and Mar-a-Lago. The Americans are getting something like what is it 2/3 of their oil and gas from Alberta at this point in time.
I think it's about half. It's at least half.
So I mean, it's like, hey, invite us in. You get all your gas without having to go through any of the international hassle. That all by itself, like I mean, talking to people from Texas and Oklahoma and the oil states, they're like, yeah, hell, let them in,
Yep.
right? At
Oh
least let
yeah.
them be a territory. So it's not like it's not going to be like what it was with Clinton and Quebec, where Clinton only stepped in at the last minute and started saying that he wanted. Like I mean, like this time there's like I mean, yeah, you'll see some Democrats in the US making some noise about not admitting Alberta, but it's like,
Don't. Don't. Don't make Alberta. Alberta should not be a state. It really shouldn't.
a territory.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we talked about this with Kelso a while ago, and he said that Alberta should basically be a protectorate at worst and a territory at best.
Yeah, make Alberta a territory. Because I mean, it's going to have to. I mean, you've also got the issue of NATO and NORAD and all that sort of stuff, and all that other stuff that would have to be worked out. If Alberta, I don't want Alberta to be its own country.
No.
Mostly because I mean, and again, I have to keep bringing up the specter of China because if they did that, China would be in here like white on fucking rice.
or yellow on Chinese skin, anyway. Oh, hello to our 3 or 4 listeners. We do appreciate you coming in and staying here. And if you have anything to say, please, by all means, please comment. We're
Okay,
open to
okay.
that.
So for the individuals who don't know what is going on, what Daniel Smith immediately did is that I mean, I'm going to say it. They would not have had any difficulty getting 600,000 signatures in 90 days. Like the overwhelming majority of the rural ridings would have voted almost like something like 70-80% of them would have signed it. And you wouldn't have any problem getting, say, another 100 to 200,000 signatures in the cities.
Yeah.
Daniel Smith changed the rules around. You could
Okay.
get 117,000 votes just out of Edmonton and Calgary.
Okay.
Signatures just out of those two cities by themselves.
Okay. I'm just going to say this right now. I have to play devil's advocate and to point out what's going on. This is a proposed bill or a change of legislation. I agree with it. I completely agree with it. And that is to basically have a 10% of eligible voter requirements based on the last election, which is the one we just had. And Smith is actually that woman is sly as a fucking fox. She really is. She's been on the record previously of saying that, in essence, she's a separatist. Let's just say it for what it is. Yep. And once you put something on the internet like this podcast or whatever else, it's out there, and unless you can find all points of it, if you can go to every place that it's out there and you can remove it or force the website to take it off, it's out there until the internet doesn't exist anymore. So she's well aware of what she has said 7, 8 years ago. And it was basically for Alberta sovereignty. It was for maybe not independence per se, but bloody well fucking close enough to it. Now, she's playing the stateswoman, the statesperson, the statesman role. And what she's done is that she has basically just kind of said, I'm not saying we're going to separate, but that door for separation, I'm just going to unlock it, open up the door, and then whatever happens, happens.
That's basically what I'm not saying it was aliens, but it was aliens.
with the probes, no, not my ass anymore. And but like I said, the woman is, politically speaking, she is a very sly fox. Like, she knows what she's doing. She can't endorse it officially, unlike Quebec in the past, but she's leaving it open for citizens to do it. Oh, and then here's the thing as well too, is that with Jason Kenney, the previous Alberta premier, had the requirement of 600,000 votes, again, like you said, down to 177,000. Now, I can say for myself that I have signed up to the Alberta Prosperity Project. Jeremy Roth or Rath or whatever his name is, the guy that was going down to the States and was going to be pushing for Alberta independence, separation. Again, whether Alberta becomes a province, it remains, well, no. Did you? Yeah, you were looking at that Canada a Myth YouTube video, right?
Yeah, I haven't seen it completely through. I'm gonna have to download it and put it up everywhere else.
Yeah. Basically, any jurisdiction within the British Empire, what it boils down to is about 1931. There was the Westminster Act or statute. It was the Westminster Statute. Is that all within the Commonwealth? Specifically, I'll talk about Canada here. Is that apparently within the Commonwealth, within Canada, each province was its own separate recognized country. And apparently that never got pushed through to Ottawa for that to be recognized. And I've looked into this. Canada is not a confederation, it is a federation. So it's kind of like Star Trek, is that we're not quite a set of republics, but we kind of are. I think it's basically 1 to maybe 2 steps down from what would be recognized as a republic within a larger organization, if that makes sense. And I think that's probably about the best way to say it. I mean, I remember when July 1st used to be Canada, it used to be Dominion Day, and then at some point it became Canada Day. And I'm sure you remember that.
Yeah.
Well, 1982, 1983?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, that would be about right. So, anyway, like I said, what Daniel Smith has done here is that the proposed legislation is that it will be she's not going to push separation, but she's opened up the door so that if there was a strong enough civil push for Alberta to give serious consideration of, it has there's that possibility to actually occur. And I think that's about the best way to say it. And I talked with my mom about this, and I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent here. Is that when I first moved out to Alberta back in 1992, and I was with our former mutual friend in the Lake Louise Village strip mall. There were a couple of guys that came out of the local bar and tavern. Now that I think about it, it was probably the one that was upstairs, but whatever whatever it's called now. And I was wearing a Fanshawe college leather jacket. You remember that one?
Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So the guy basically looked at me, and I made a comment about some guy being his friend being too drunk or whatever it was, and he said, "Well, you're from Ontario. Fuck off," more or less. And I didn't get it. And not until basically Trump's move into politics that I started to wake up to what actually is going on. And that's where I switched from being a liberal into being a conservative. And talking with my mom recently enough is that she doesn't get what the Alberta alienation feeling is. And I started to tell her what's going on here. And she basically said, I had no idea. And it's like, yeah, Mom, I know. I didn't get it either until I came out here. And I remember when, back in the day of, the 19, when the PC party collapsed and came out from the West, the Reform Party of Canada with Preston Manning, CBC Air Force, that, the West wants in. And there were some that I worked with, and I respected him at the time, and I still wish he was alive. But I think the two of us really wouldn't be speaking right now because just to give an idea as to how entrenched he was within the left wing part of Ontario's culture, is that his death was mentioned in the Globe and Mail on page 14. Like that's how I would love to have a debate with him about this right now. I really would. Anyway, it was he had a problem with Alberta standing up for itself, or Western Canada standing up for itself, to push its views into Ottawa. And yet, and we've talked about this before, I mean, how many times have you seen Quebec separatists come out to the back area, to the Bow Valley, and they learn very quickly either to shut the fuck up or they go back home?
Oh, more times than
okay.
More times. I mean, that's like. Well, I mean, it's like they got told. I remember this very specifically around people in Quebec. There was a couple of separatists that were working in the kitchen of the restaurant that we were in, and it was like, and everybody was like looking at when I was being told this, right? There's a couple of separatists in there, and it's like, oh well, I'll be able to keep my job when Quebec separates, and it was like, no, you're not.
You're gonna, if Quebec leaves, you have to make a choice: shit or get off the fucking pot. And that's what it comes down to. There's a guy on Facebook who's in Quebec, and I said to him, he's like, it was one of those. It's like, I live in Quebec. I don't really want to deal with this crap. Blah 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 blah. And I said, brother, come out here while you can. And if you're going to be if you're going to support what's going on provincially, yeah, I want you to come out here. And if you're going to do it, you better do it now. And that's what I have to say about anybody that wants to come here. if the if the political system within Canada doesn't make sense to you, there's going to be one, maybe two, well, one, probably two provinces that are going to basically say, you know what, I don't see any advantage of staying within Canada. Like, and realistically, I don't think there is. I really don't.
Oh, I mean, Carney is either going to have to be the change,
Well,
or he is going, or he's not going to last. He's not going to survive very long. I mean, well, basically, again, right? He cannot pull the same stuff with the Canadian firms that tried in Europe. That will result. That will immediately. Let's just go through all of them. Let's just go through all of them one at a time. He cannot force Alberta to change its trans agenda policies. If he does, that's probably another 3, 4, 5% of the Alberta population that's going to flip over. So he can't force Alberta on that. Same thing with education. That's a provincial matter. Daniel Smith has made that clear. If he can't put the squeeze to Alberta financially.
He can try, but it's going to come down to, it's like, okay, well, it's going to come down to lawfare.
Yep, and it's like if he tries it, and if he tries to do the other thing, which is retaliate by excluding Alberta from national policies, that's going to alienate Alberta even more. So he doesn't have any pull sway there that way. He's been told in no uncertain terms that if he fucks with the energy policies of Alberta, that it's gonna be game on. And again, the energy sector in Alberta by itself is not enough to get Alberta over the top. But it's like
there's enough of a push already as it is. Well, the thing too, though, is that since he was, one of Trudeau's semi-official, I don't know what the fuck he was, advisors, when Smith was basically telling Ottawa to get the fuck out, stay out of provincial politics, he knows what's going on.
Yep. So again, continue. I'm not even halfway through this. So
okay, okay. I'll let you talk for another couple of minutes. I got to take care of some business. I'll be right back.
Okay, so if he tries to do something on the energy front, that's not going to work. If he tries to do on the education front, that might not be as damaging, but he can't do it. He definitely can't pull the same thing in Europe that the governments in Europe tried to pull with the farmers there. Because if he pulls that here, it is. And by the way, I will emphasize this. I can't emphasize this strongly enough. That will be. Which is the reason why Trudeau chose to back off on it. It's because it's like if he does that, it is basically game over. And it would also put Saskatchewan on course for leaving as well. The other major area that and I hate to, by the way, folks, if I'm sounding like this is being about Alberta separation, like this is going to be the dominant issue in Canada. Carney cannot, I've said this multiple times about C-63, if he tries to pull Bill C-63, I think Daniel Smith will have no choice but to invoke notwithstanding on it. And also, again, that's going to be another 2-3% of the population of Alberta that will start to swing over. It will be even more prominent that way if Daniel Smith invokes notwithstanding on something like Bill C-63 and goes about it that way. The other part, we won't be able to shut up the alt media. The other thing is that if he tries to do the sort of thing that the Democrats have been doing, which is basically burying other parts of other bills in and giving it a nice sounding name, which will put Daniel Smith in a catch-22. there's enough alt media out there that will expose it that Carney will not be able to really pull that off very successfully either. He won't be able to keep CBC is
CBC's
C is
done.
CBC is I mean yeah that 150 million that he promised them during the election, yeah, they will get that, and that will probably be the last amount of money that they'll ever get. Yes,
I
CBC.
fucking hope so. I'm so sick of this. I'm so sick of the Canadian Communist Broadcasting Company.
Okay, so I mean, it's like so again. I mean, it like no matter what Carney does, it won't work. And again, I've run through the scenario. But basically, what Carney's going to have to do is he's going to have to choose between Alberta and Quebec. And yeah, Quebec is also very important to Confederation. He's probably going to have to go with Quebec. And if he goes with Quebec, also, yeah, again,
Mhm.
if the leader of the BQ, again,
Oh,
I've said this a couple of times already, if the leader of the BQ decides that and wants to continue to treat Alberta, and last but not least on this, you cannot continue to insult the person who's paying for everything.
okay. For now, Blanchette has said that he'll be happy to play nice with Ottawa until 2026. And then, from there, it's going to be it could be a whole different thing. Who knows?
Again, I mean, I would find it very ironic that Quebec demands are the thing that causes Alberta to leave. Because, I mean, again, right, Daniel Smith has to allow the process to take place. She had to open the door. She had to let it happen.
Mm-hmm.
She was really left with no other choice but to allow that door to be open. Because if she had left that door, she had closed that door, it would have been game over, and it would have gotten really really ugly. Also, the last thing, and I pointed this out a couple of times already, with the exception of a few Democrats in the U.S.,
Who
I
the
think most.
fuck is that?
It was just a photo that I have no idea. It's
Oh
just
God,
somebody.
disgusting. Anyway,
Anyway, so yeah, Trump is gonna. I mean, yeah. Most of the red states are almost immediately going to be all for Alberta at least becoming a territory.
oh yeah,
I mean, so it's like so it's not going to be like, oh well, it's better if Canada's together this time. It's like
nope,
no, it's
nope.
not going to be that way at all this time. And again, right, they don't. Carney is in a like no matter which way Carney goes on this, he's going to hit opposition because if he tries to shut up the alt media, that's gonna backfire on him. If he tries anything with the fry, so basically, and it's like if he tries to exclude Alberta in retaliation, that's not gonna work. If he tries to pork barrel stuff, which is like he passes these bills, these big huge omnibus bills like they do in the US, and throw in a bunch of stuff to basically force the Republicans to sign for it, because if they don't, they won't get some of the other stuff that they need. If he tries that with Daniel Smith,
Mm-hmm.
that's again like no matter anything, I hate to say this, but it's
No,
true.
no.
Anything
Any
other
anything Carney's going to do at this point, it's going to be a political landmine. He's going to be stepping on it. He'll have to basically decide what is going to be the lesser of the two evils.
it's like Carney's really only option is to just sit back and let Alberta be Alberta. And that would be the best move. And for the love, I hope, and don't try and pull. Don't go after the ultimate. And here's the thing: even if he does that, he still loses.
Yeah,
Um,
Carney is in a no-win situation no matter what he does.
yeah, which is probably the reason why he's probably not going. This particular government is not. It's a, so Ezra Levant was saying, is a possibility it might not even last out the year.
That
I don't want to be that optimistic, but don't be surprised if there's another election in 2026.
I was going to say, if this lasts more than 2 years, I'll be incredibly surprised.
Yeah. Carney, the globalists cannot manage this situation any longer. It's pretty much game over for them. The only reason that even with he won't also the membership inside the NDP and the Greens will not allow their parties to fucking be self-destructed to keep the globalists in next time. Like he's played that card now, just like in France. Like the next election in France, the left-wing parties that are still there are not gonna fucking play ball.
No, they're not. I mean,
And
I kind of wish Roger was on right now because he actually has a grasp of the honest complexity of Canadian politics. And I didn't think that we were that complex, but really we are. Like, I mean, we're comprised of
well, it
like,
makes perfect sense to us, but I mean, yeah, explaining it to other people outside. Also, I have to keep something in mind here.
which is
Canada is I can't I've looked around. I have not found another situation where the richest part of a country is not connected to like the central, like,
the largest populated part of a country.
well, no. Alberta is paying for everything. The only thing is,
Yeah,
though, is that Alberta is not in the is not part of the Laurentian elite.
yeah.
There is not another country on the entire planet that is like that. In fact, I can't even find a historical parallel of a
Of
country that was
something like
ever like that. Oh no! Wait, no, wait. There was one.
that.
Ironically enough, there was one. I remember the Roman Empire,
I was
Syria.
I was going to say the Roman Empire just literally just popped into my mind like a couple of seconds before you said it.
Okay, the Eastern Roman Empire, Syria, was just absolutely gangbusters wealthy and was paying for a lot of the rest of the empire.
Hmm.
And it was not on the Italian peninsula, right?
No, yeah,
And when they lost Syria, that's when, well, actually, when the East separated from the West, the East got Syria. That's the reason why, a
yeah.
big part of the reason why the Eastern Empire thrived and why the Western Roman Empire just kind of like caved in on itself because they didn't have the money coming in the way that the Eastern Empire had.
I'm guessing that Syria must have had some sort of a silver mine or something to actually produce
Oh no, Sid,
actual cash.
they were super like Syria, that whole Mesopotamia, that whole Syria area. Same thing with Egypt. That what the eastern part of the empire was like, I will say propping up the empire, but they were paying for a lot of stuff. That's the only parallel that I can think of that happened. Keep in mind, things didn't start going bad for the Western Roman Empire, the Roman Empire, until it split in two, and then the western half just like caved in on itself because the
Yeah,
East got both Egypt and Syria. However, there is no modern parallel where this has happened, where the wealthiest part of the country is not also in the, like, Alberta is not part of the Laurentians, right?
yeah. Okay.
And it's like, and they simply put, I mean, either Carney gets, and this is what Polyev was going to have to do too. Carney is going to have to renegotiate the seats and give it by, for instance, Alberta by itself deserves probably like deserves way more seats than it's going to get. They're also going to have to readjust the Senate. If he doesn't do that, it's game over. And Polyev was going to have to do the exact same thing.
I've come. Okay, in terms of Senate reform, I've actually had two ideas go through my head, and I consulted Grok on this. And I think the better of the two options is to leave the seat allocation to what it is because we have to have a 7 provinces and 50 plus majority of the population, however that's going to be represented. Students might will have to agree to this. And changing the seat allocation isn't going to work very well because Ontario and Quebec are basically going to say, fuck no, we don't want this.
Well, again, if they don't, then you're going to be dealing with separation again.
Okay, yep, fair enough. But the other thing too, though, okay, do you know how many Senate seats are allocated to each province?
It was divided up by regions, so it was the Atlantic provinces, Ontario, Quebec, and the West. That
Okay,
was when it was set up, and
all
the
right,
population dynamics
yeah,
are now very different. Jean Chrétien, for instance, declared BC as its own economic region, as its own region at one point,
wow,
but he
okay,
didn't
yep,
get. This was years ago. At that point,
mm,
BC should have gotten the same number of seats as Ontario and Quebec, and it did not.
yep,
And a lot of
okay,
people don't know that.
mm-hmm,
And Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba should have also gotten more proportional seats as well.
yep,
They didn't do that
okay.
because they didn't do that. Again, no matter, he's either going to have to reform or this government's not going to last.
I
Period. And they can't go. He can't go to the Chinese to interfere. The worst that's going to. I mean, it's like if he doesn't,
oh, you
you're going to
can't.
start to see provinces start to leave. Alberta is at the top of the list. Like all of the West, like Alberta, then Saskatchewan. Got to point out that once this whole thing gets started, suppose, all right, hypothetically,
Okay,
Alberta
so
leaves,
yep, all
or
right,
even Alberta
okay.
leaves.
Let's start with Alberta leaving because we're we're the tip of the spear.
Okay, so Alberta leaves.
Yep.
China and other countries immediately swoop in here like white on rice. And of
Yep.
course, Alberta's going to be like looking at it because Canada's not going to do shit. So that means that they're going to have to go to Trump.
Yep.
And because Daniel Smith has made it a point of developing relations with the Republicans and Trump, right? Getting Alberta in as at least a territory, possibly even a state,
Yep.
is probably going to get fast tracked. If that happens, well, first
Yep.
of all, BC, now you got a situation where you've got Saskatchewan, where you've got BC and Ontario carrying, and it's like economically, it just
No.
isn't going to
No.
happen.
No. No. No.
And
Okay.
BC,
Okay.
I already know BC doesn't really. BC is sort of like, and I know this because I'm from BC. BC, it's sort of like, oh well, there's actually a country east of the Rockies. Yes, there is. But
Okay.
I mean, Ontario and BC and Saskatchewan are also both, and it's like again, not to mention the fact that because there's no more goodies coming from Alberta,
Mm-hmm.
Quebec won't be getting the spigots will be turned off in Quebec, and Quebec will also start. Like so once it starts to go, I think Canada will go very very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Carney has to make a decision. Carney has to decide who his bosses are. He's going to have to decide whether it's the Canadian people or whether it's his global fucking masters. If he goes with the global masters, Canada is not going to survive.
Canada's done. I'm sorry, man, but Canada is done now. It's over. It's just that the boomer population in Ontario is, how else can I say it? They're blissfully ignorant. They are the pigs. They are the pigs rolling around in shit and mud because they have no fucking idea. And as I said already, when I moved out to Alberta way back in '92, I had no idea. And the guy with this really drunk friend basically said to me, "Oh, you're from Ontario. You have no idea what it's like to be here." And I didn't. Honestly, I did not. I'm going to go back to an article that I read, I believe it was in the National Post. And I believe that Memory Express had moved from the one location to where it is now in Dalhousie in Calgary. And the article back then, like we're talking 15, no, about 15 years ago, the the biggest threat to Canadian unity is not Quebec, it's Alberta. I'm like, what? What the fuck is this? And I read the article and I was like, yeah, I actually can see that happening. So this was it's been something that has been very slow to actually come to fruition. And the article wasn't wrong because that's how I'm feeling now. And again, I used to be a liberal. I used to believe in Canadian Federation. I didn't understand. I didn't get Alberta alienation, and and the whole freaking bit. And if that's what I'm feeling, my mother in Ontario has no idea. And I've tried to explain it to her a little bit, and it's going to be a long conversation with her. So maybe when I go back to Ontario, hopefully well enough before she dies, because my father just passed away. I think because of the job, we'll be that'll to explain to her what's going on within Alberta, and if any of my other extended family members or immediate family members will sit down and listen to what I have to say. It's like, you know, fuck Ontario, fuck the frogs, screw the rest of Canada. The big economic engine in Canada is in Alberta, but we don't have representation in Ottawa, and it's pissing a lot of people off. And I think like the silent majority that has been, we've talked about this before, going into the last US election, is that there are enough Albertans that are not saying anything, at least not yet, but they're waiting for that spark. They're waiting for that catalyst. And again, what is a catalyst? A catalyst is something that will change the outcome of the before and after chemical reaction to something. And this is your, like your catalytic converter. The converter doesn't change. What it does is that it helps reduce the pollution coming out of your car or your truck or your SUV. But the catalytic converter doesn't do anything. It just helps fix the input versus the output. And we've talked about the Alberta delegation going to the US that wants to secede. Not necessarily to become a state, but to at least basically say, hey, you know what, Ottawa, get stuff. Because that's how I'm feeling now. And I've been feeling this way for one form or another since about 2016. And as I'm getting older, it hasn't diminished. It's only gotten worse, or it's only progressed. And again, I've um, I've worked with someone. I've had two people in my work who were connected to two families, two prominent families in terms of Canadian politics. The first one is a nephew of Peter Lougheed, and I'm not dropping this just to name names. I'm just saying this. Mark is one of Lougheed's nephews. I actually have to go to the Lougheed house and to find out if I can get a hold of him. But anyway, and then the other is she was the nephew of Ed Broadbent of the NDP, but she's really, at the time she was, I don't think she's changed at all. But she's a conservative through and through. And I've gone from the NDP liberal base into the conservative base. And when I call myself a transplanted Albertan, that's exactly what I am. I wasn't born here. My son was born here, but I'm not born here. But I'm all for Alberta for its own of
Well, I mean, Alberta is the bulwark against globalism in Canada at
yeah,
this point.
yeah. And,
You know,
oh, and that's what I wanted to say as well too. Is that Ottawa voted red because they are federal employees. When I don't think that Poilievre's um, comment or his position to slowly eliminate federal jobs. For every 3 people that leave, we're going to have 2 people that are going to get hired. That's not unreasonable as far as I'm concerned. 3 people leave, well, we have to make sure we have 2 people that are going to be hired. There is going to be a slow, I guess it's kind of like, like dealing with modern women, is that eventually and slowly and progressively, the the federal workforce has to, they can't sit on their ass and do fucking nothing. Because that's what they're basically known for. Am I right?
pretty much. Well, like, again, we could. We're getting. Jesus Christ, we're at almost 2 hours here.
Yeah.
Canada is going to have to do what Milei did in Argentina, what Orban did in Hungary, what Meloni has been trying to do in Italy, and what Trump is doing in the U.S. They're gonna have, and they have to do it not just because of personal power. They have to do it because the current economic system
Yep.
is not sustainable as it is. Like, the money effectively runs out in the mid 30s. And so it's like Carney,
Ooh,
like, Canada is going to have to make these changes, whether they
they want
want to
to or
or
not.
not.
Yep.
And it's like, and if Carney doesn't do it, the country, if Carney's not willing to do it, then by the time again,
Oh,
I gotta keep saying this. No matter which way it goes, Carney fucking loses.
and that's what I was going to say as well too, is that apparently there has been talk within the Conservative Party is that someone in and around Edmonton is going to step down for Poilievre to basically go in for a by-election, and that can take up to 8 months from now if it was to happen. And I can see that it's going to go in that direction. Now, I'm still sitting on the fence about Poilievre because I've said this before and I'll say it again. He says enough of things that I like, but I can't get behind him. And when I voted, I walked out and just kind of, I said to myself, like, I feel like I use dirty whore, a 304. Like I know the system is broken. The system doesn't work. And yet here I am getting in line. It just, I don't know. I fucking don't know.
Well, there wasn't a lineup where I was at. Yeah, other
Oh
than the
no,
fact that
yeah,
other than what I had to deal with the food poisoning, yeah, on Monday, it was like, by the way, I've barely eaten since then.
yeah, you might have,
And I'm gonna not get into the health issues here.
you might have lost a couple of pounds because Lord knows both of us need to lose more than a few pounds. No, sorry, we need to shed them off and don't get them back again.
Many trips to the bathroom yesterday. That's all I'm going to say. I've been consuming water like it's going out of style over the past 48
Fair
hours.
enough. Fair enough. Yeah.
The whole thing about this is that, I mean, as we're getting close to the end on this, and yeah, I didn't want this to be about Alberta separation. I wanted this to be about Canada, but it cannot be about Canada. I live in Alberta, right? This is, and it has been my home now for, let's see, it'll be 20 years just after Christmas this year that I have lived in Edmonton.
Yep. Fair enough.
It was probably basically from 1990 through 1999, literally all that except for about a year and a half.
Mhm.
was also in Alberta. So basically, I have lived in Alberta almost half my life.
Mhm.
And I have lived, I mean, I broke my record for the place that I lived in the longest here, October of last year, when I finally moved out of that apartment. I lived in that apartment. That's the place I lived the longest any time in my life. I lived in that place for, oh God, 12 and a half years. I was there. Yeah, I was there for a while.
Yeah.
I'm not missing. The one thing, as I've been coming back home from camp when I was working in the camps, was that, I mean, I was on the fourth floor of a 4 floor fucking building with no fucking elevators. So the trip up those stairs when I got home was brutal with all my bags. It's like now I just have to go up one flight of fucking stairs and I'm in my apartment, which is such a relief. Which was such a relief.
Yeah.
Um, it's like, yeah, this whole thing. It's like Alberta is going to be the topic. And
Oh,
if the Laurentian, if the mainstream media and the Laurentian elites don't get how fucking bad it is going to be out here for them, well, that is going to be on them. That is not going to be on any of us, because it's like, and I mean, I'm also going to have to make it a point of going back out east before all this happens, because it's sort of like, and I'm going to take my University of Alberta sweatshirt and walk around with it and see who asks me questions. And if they start getting on my case about it, it's like, yeah, well, you fucking voted for this. Just remember, people
oh,
outside of out in Ontario and Quebec and in the Atlantic provinces, you fucking voted for this. Okay, you got sucked in by the mainstream media propaganda. You just assumed that the money was just going to keep flowing to you no matter what,
yep.
and then Alberta wasn't going to say anything, except of course the globalists stepped in and they fucked up. They started fucking the system up. And Alberta is culturally very similar to Texas, and they were never really particularly keen on the country in the first place. But I mean, again, I didn't mind, like that. When Pierre, not Justin, Pierre brought in this thing called national pricing, it was like, okay, yeah, that's probably a good thing, right? Prices stay consistent from coast to coast, right?
Yeah.
I didn't mind doing that, but there had to be some type of other payoff for Alberta for them to do that. And they
Mhm.
have never delivered that payoff. They keep fucking with us. And because they keep fucking with us, and because of globalism, now they're trampling on basic human rights just so that they can stay in power, and trying to do, oh, I never even got into this.
Which was?
George Soros and
Oh
trying to
God.
fucking and messing around with the city councils in with Red Deer on Edmonton and Calgary. If they try to, and if, yeah, so if Carney tries to use proxies to create instability here, that
Mhm.
will again, he will lose in the long, again, because there's independent media who will fucking report it.
Mhm.
Like, no matter which way he goes on this, he loses.
You mean the same George Soros that has been outed for U.S. aid to give his organizations cash or funding?
Yeah, well, Carney will definitely allow the spigots to flow that way. He's definitely, I mean, don't be surprised too if Alberta suddenly sees a bit of a, he's gonna have to make sure that Alberta is booming. It will give him an excuse. This will be his one safe move, I think, will be to allow Alberta's economy to boom a little bit. That way, it gives them the excuse to bring in more immigrants.
Oh fuck! I gotta get back. I'm doing my best to get back out to Banff, and when I go there, that's it. Like I said, if I get back out to Banff, regardless of my son and soon to be ex, I'm gone. Like I'm fucking done. There's nothing that gives me any sense of
feeling that Alberta is going to survive. No, no, sorry, Alberta will survive. Canada will not.
No, not in its current form. They're gonna have to, like, and the longer they take before they do it, the
Yep.
worse it's going to be.
Yep.
Now
They'll,
it could be.
go ahead.
Ultimately, what's going to happen is Canada and the U.S. are going to merge anyway. But I mean, it's sort of like the globalists, ironically enough, by doing what it is they're doing, right? And what you're going to start seeing, you might start seeing the provinces go flooding back, going into the U.S. piecemeal, like one province at a time, right? And the U.S. will have to either make them territories or full blow. And by the way, because you're talking about another country here, they are going to have to give them special consideration. So I mean, while there's some people who don't think that Alberta wants to be a state, because of Alberta's status, it would have to be taken seriously.
Now, I'm assuming you would say Alberta to be taken seriously because of its status. It's because of what we can contribute to the American economy. Correct?
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, the richest, at the very least, the single richest region in the West,
Okay.
right? Paying for everything that Canada is currently doing right now.
Yep.
Do you think the U.S. government would love to get their fucking hands on that?
Yep, they would. And
they would be they would have to, because if they didn't, the Chinese, and that's the other issue here, is that like they're gonna have to be a lot more vigilant about Chinese CCP interference in Alberta affairs, because they will also start pushing for it.
Yep.
But for different reasons.
Yep. Well, my opinion is that I was on the Phil Godlewski Telegram podcast. He lost his voice, laryngitis, whatever. And the question was asked about, has Canada been annexed by the U.S.? And he replied that it has been. Now, to go under that premise, to go with that assumption, I guess is probably about the best way to say it. And again, you haven't watched that whole thing of Canada the Myth or whatever it is on YouTube. I remember reading about this with extreme interest, but I didn't understand the implication.
Could you put that in the link? Could you put that in the live chat so I could put it in the low bar if you get the chance?
Yeah, give me just a quick minute here. I will deal with that. Oh, Canada the Illusion. Yeah, that's what it is. Or is it Canada the... Yep, that's what it is. I remember when Canada sold off its gold reserves.
To Britain.
No, just sold it off. That was the time of Chrétien, with Paul Martin being the finance minister. And there was that simmering feud between Chrétien and Martin, basically being political rivals. Martin had to be Chrétien's bitch, basically. Just a quick second here. There you go. And what we were...
Is it in the live chat? Because it's not showing.
Private.
Okay, can't print chat.
Should be there. Basically, any country that does not have something backing its currency You would have to watch something like the Hidden Secrets of Money from Mike Maloney on YouTube, and it's a 10-part series. Canada has no gold reserves, none. Chrétien sold off most of it to begin to pay down the debt. It didn't get paid off by Mulroney, which was brought in by Turner, which was brought in previously to him by Trudeau Senior. That's the short, not so sweet story of it all. And what little that we had left, I can't remember if Harper. I think Harper might have sold off a bit of it, but whatever we had left when Justin time. Anyway, when the last fucking idiot in Ottawa that was in charge of the country who loves his pot and I think he loves little boys basically sold it all off. Our currency is worthless and it's worth less. So, as it's been shown in the course of history, is that no currency has survived the course of time because at some point politicians are going to will be put in place and they will print and they will print and they will print more and more and more. And I said this when the whole COVID relief thing came out back in 2020, 2021, something around there. And it takes about at least 1.5 to 2 years. It takes at least 2 years before injections of government spending goes into the economy, and then you start to see things go up in price. Inflation hits. And there are only 3 countries in total that have no gold back in their currency. Canada, I believe Angola, and I can't remember what the other one is. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. So you and I, my friend, we are in the middle of a socioeconomic experiment that has already been done numerous times in the past, and the idiot boomers within Canada don't see what's going on. And I asked my son, should my friend buy silver or just keep his cash? And he said to buy silver. And I asked him why. He's because of the purchasing power of what's called inflation, which means that your dollar becomes worth less and less and less over the course of time because the government just keeps printing money and it doesn't amount to anything. And that's a lot of what I've seen happen within this. Enough of the idiot boomers in Ontario. So the best thing that Alberta can do is for it to question whether or not it's worthwhile stay with Canada, or it's best to leave. And I'm pretty sure that I can talk to. I've got 2 sisters, one of whom is she's been very materialistic for pretty much all of her life. And if I was to basically put down $20 for this, put it down. If I was to put down a $50 bill, and a silver coin, I wouldn't be surprised if she was to grab the cash. And if she grabs the cash, she has no idea what real money is or real economic policies are. And my other sister, who's been very happy to be voting NDP because her and her husband are left wingers, I've got no use for them. I really honestly don't. So, in short, what I'm trying to say here is that Canada is just fucked. What we know is basically all done. Now, I did ask the question on what the hell? Map of Canada. So how red are we?
No. That's just a map of Canada. We're getting close to the end here. So
yeah. Okay. So I did ask the question about sellout sing, and how much longer does Canada have to endure Trudeau? And I believe that was going back to October of last year. And Canada is basically primed to become part of the US. He basically said is that we're headed towards basically kind of a European Union style of things. And if that's the case, Ontario, Quebec, Vancouver, well, basically,
Well, BC, it's gonna be all of BC, right? It's gonna like I mean like Vancouver. But here's the other issue, and again, right? We could go on for 4 hours here. Unfortunately, we haven't got the time.
yeah,
But the scenario that plays out is that Alberta leaves, then Saskatchewan leaves, and BC is geographically isolated and Western
it's
and they're dealing with the same issue that Alberta was dealing with, except it's even more extreme now because BC is having to fucking pay for everything, right?
thank you. Yeah,
And
yeah, and you're then that's the point that I wanted to get to.
and they've got the CCP desperately trying to get some kind of foothold in North America, and Vancouver is right at the top of that list,
Yeah,
which will basically force the US government to either BC will either capitulate to China or the US. So the US will have to step in,
yeah.
or BC will have to also leave. Once BC leaves, that's basically it. Canada, as we know it, is done.
Yeah.
It will be done the moment Alberta leaves. And then, of course, you got the fact that they can't pay off Quebec anymore.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. And that was something with one of my former coworkers, and she said the same thing. Alberta is the keystone to keeping everything together financially. And when Alberta leaves, that's it. The whole that arch collapses, and that's it. It's done. It's not Ontario because Ontario, the three half provinces is Alberta, and I think Saskatchewan, and then BC.
No, it's BC, Alberta, and Ontario. Saskatchewan sometimes.
Okay, well,
Sometimes.
okay. At the end of the day, Alberta is the province that's keeping the country together financially.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
they're the financial workhorse.
yeah.
Everybody will want to and I mean everybody. If Alberta leaves, everybody's gonna come swooping in here if they've got the capability. That's the thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's like Alberta will have economic options they can only dream of. Their first and obvious choice is going to be the United States, and the United States will definitely probably let them. And there'll be a few Democrats that'll probably try to hold up the process, but it's
It's fine.
at the very least it's going to be a territory.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. And as far as I'm
And they will
concerned,
be forced to do that because if they don't, the CCP will try to start fucking around with things here, and that just cannot be allowed to happen.
now you're also working under the assumption that the Democrat Party is not going to be negatively affected with the course of time and with secrets being revealed. Anyway, Trump knows what he's doing, and I think that his last tweet was to push Canada to being liberal and to begin the process of officially annexing Canada into the US.
Well, I mean, he wants Carney in there because Poliev would hold the line against him, and Carney's a puppet.
Yeah. Well, I have my doubts about Polyev to begin with, and I've always been, like I said, when I voted for McLean, the Calgary Centre MP, I walked out of there and just kind of like, I didn't want to do that. I just didn't. I wasn't going to vote PPC, but it was just one of those because I know that again, Carney was selected to quote be elected for Canada, and Trump had enough of the enough data to know that if he spoke up at the last minute, which he did, yeah, the best person to be running Canada is going to be me. Not you, but it's going to be me because it's going to be huge and it's going to be this and it's going to be that and there's going to be less taxes, all of that shit. And the idiots in Ontario, the idiots, anybody that voted Liberal because, oh, I don't want to deal with Trump. It's like, oh, you have been led down the alley with the nose rings and you were being pulled, but you weren't being pulled a lot, just pulled enough to do that. So it's going to be interesting. My prediction will be by the end of the year, I think I won't be surprised, will not be surprised if it's been made official that Canada is now parts of Canada, or individually speaking, provinces, whatever, will become part of the U.S. And DTJ, we're talking about that. Trump, what does Trump want? He got control of the Panama Canal, and now he has to have control of the Northwest Passage. The only way that he can do that is to mess around with Canadian politics. Anyway, we need to end this because I got stuff to do, and
Okay, yeah, I will have a final copy because I mean we could just go on and on and on. For those of you who don't know, I'm going to post up that Alberta theme there, this one, to bring us out.
love it.
There's something that feels very visceral and powerful with this. By the way, was born on Canada's 100th birthday, right?
Yep.
The fact that I'm even discussing this is like, really, I can't believe I'm actually taking this seriously. But I'm not really being left with much of a choice. I mean, it's like C63 or a version of it would effectively mean that I am left with no other choice but to leave in order to pursue this is what I'm doing now. I'm going to be doing this until I die or find something better to do. And if I have to go to the States to do it, then so be it. But this is where I'm at. There's a lot of factors into play here. This government's not going to last. Like Carney is not a reformer, and they pulled every trick they had in the book to get Carney, just to get him in, and they still didn't get a majority, even though the mainstream media tried to play it up like he was going to win a majority. And it's like it is going. I mean, like short of complete, like they are going to have very little choice. They're going to have to assuage to Alberta's demands, or not demands. Actually, it is going to be basically at this point. It is going to be demands. They do not do it, then the cornerstone gets removed and the country starts to fall apart very quickly. Like I said, Alberta, BC, and Saskatchewan probably, if Carney continues to do what Trudeau's going to do, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and BC are going to go, maybe not immediately, but in very rapid order. Without the money from Alberta, they won't have the money to pay off Quebec. So Quebec goes with the Atlantic provinces being geographically isolated. They will have no choice but to go to Washington, D.C. with hat in hand. So what you're pretty much going to be left with is basically the territories, assuming the territories don't decide to jump ship as well. There's no telling what's going to happen that far north, because that place is going to be booming over the next couple of decades. You're basically going to be left with Ontario and Manitoba. That's it. And I'm going to just post this photo up of Canada on the board here. Take a look at it. This might be a very interesting historical map, and it much sooner than a lot of people were expecting. And unless Rearson has any other final comments to say, we're done for tonight.
We're done.
Okay, well, thanks for listening. How many people did we actually get watching this show?
I think we were about
24.
Oh wow. Okay.
We had 24. We had over 100. I mean, I'll take it off air. But yeah, that is it for tonight, folks. We're done. I got to talk with Rusin here for a little bit. Then I got to get myself prepped for tonight here because I got to be I got to be driving up to the north side of town to pick up my car here in a little over an hour. So I will talk to you. I will talk to you on 439, which is also looking to be a very interesting show.
Without me, because I'm going to be going dark again for quite a while.
Yeah, you'll be going dark for a while. I may have to. I am again. I am prepared to do this by myself if I have to. All right.
Anyway, give me a call.
All right. I'll talk to you in a bit.
Yep.
That's it, folks. Thanks for listening.